I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Siloam Springs Board of Directors for March 17, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Carroll.
Yeah, here.
Coleman.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Sappington.
Here.
Would you please stand as Director Carroll leads us in our opening prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Good evening, Father. In the midst of trial, may we take this opportunity to rise up and shine. May we show our mettle. May we build upon the unity already shown within our community. Let us receive your strength and accept our sufficient measure of hope. We do this through your unfailing love, for we do not walk alone. We will be the hands and feet of help to our brother. As we look to our neighbor, let us utilize the wisdom, the courage you have provided. Let us not hide, but be that blessing, that beacon on the hill. In all this we give thanks. In Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening. I hope you were able to find a seat, those of you who are out there, without any problems. It seems like there's more people here when we spread the chairs out. And on those, so anyway, welcome to this evening. Board. Well, before we get into any further, I want to make sure that anybody, if you have an electronic device, that you've silenced that, so we won't have anyone's phones ringing or alarms going off while someone is trying to speak. Fire department officials are excluded from the alarms going off if that happens to them. So, anyway, board, you've each received a copy of the minutes of the workshop for March 3, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone who feels there need to be changes made to that particular workshop minutes? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. You've also each received received the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3, 2020. Please note in your packet that Renee found a scrivener's error with regard to the date on the minutes, and the copies that you were provided were corrected. So we won't need any changes to be made on that if you discovered that. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone who feels there need to be further changes made to the minutes as you received them? Being none, we will vote on the motion and the minutes as received. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Before we move into our public input period on our agenda, Philip is going to address the board and address the public and anyone that's watching on TV concerning an update on where the city is with regard to the COVID-19 situation. So, Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. I just want to update the public, update the board and staff for that matter on everything that we are doing internally to try to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Obviously, you can see in the boardroom, social distancing is one of the keys, and we've reduced, per some of the recommendations by the Municipal League, reduced the number of seats to try to spread the seating out so that we're keeping our distances from that standpoint. We've had numerous conversations with businesses throughout the city and churches and trying to understand what everybody's doing. Obviously, everybody knows JBU students have, JBU is closed. The school's closed for the next couple of weeks. JBU students will be working online, and they've closed the dorms or will be closing the dorms. Many of the churches in town will be having online worship services for the next couple of weeks. At the city level, I have directed staff that we are canceling all city-sponsored events or meetings or city-permitted events and meetings where the public is invited to attend through March the 30th. We've canceled all in-state and out-of-state travel, in-state travel through March 30th to any business conferences, and out-of-state travel to any business conferences through April 15th. We've limited public access to the fire department in order to protect the firemen. We don't have to limit the public access at the police department based on the design of the police department. We've closed the courts through March the 30th, the animal shelter through March the 30th. We're not issuing any new permits for public gathering events through the city, also through March 30th. We've closed the library due to the social distancing, and with the kids being out of school, our concern is that would be a gathering place for all of those kids, and so we felt that was the proper thing to do. In the finance department, we are encouraging those who normally come to the city to pay their utility bills not to come to the city, to pay online, pay by check, drop it in the mail, drop it in the drop box. If those individuals can only pay by cash, we're asking them to hold their payment, and we're not going to shut people off. We're not going to issue late notices or late fees and ask them just to hold their payment and not come to City Hall for the time being. We're only wanting people who come to City Hall for new services or something like that. It's not going to stop everybody, but we're encouraging people not to come to City Hall if they don't have to. We've suspended recycling services through March 30th. There will be no recycling pickup this week or next week. And the reason being for that, the biggest reason is because we pick up by hand. And in order to have staff do that, we would have to have gloves. They'd have to change gloves on every pickup. If not, they're contaminating their steering wheel and the cab of that vehicle. And so we would encourage residents to bring their recycling service or their recyclables to the transfer center. We have that recycling area open 24/7, or just to hold it for the next couple of weeks if possible. We do have some extra recycling containers. If someone needs an extra one, we don't have enough to go to every household, but if you need an extra recycling container, we can call Public Works or Sanitation and get you one, and we'll do that until we run out of those containers. Any volunteer work for the city has been canceled, and the main thing in all of this, again, is social distancing. So we are trying to do what we can at the city level to prevent that spread. We met yesterday morning with staff to try to go through all of these particulars to try to make sure that what we were doing was the right thing, and to try to recognize that what we were going to do is going to create ripple effects in the community, and we wanted to try to identify what those ripple effects were going to be and be aware of them. Obviously, the biggest one, I think, is the recycling for most people and not having that picked up. At the police department and fire department, I've asked that the chiefs in both of those departments not only screen employees when they come on shift to make sure they don't have a fever, but also to screen calls so that we know when they go out to make a service call if that individual's been out of the country, if they have been traveling, do they have a fever? We want to try to know what's going on there. We believe we have the personal protection equipment necessary to be able to handle all of those calls, but we want to do everything we can to make sure that our essential services remain intact and we're able to provide those essential services to the residents of this city. Police, fire, water, electricity. What we looked at were non-essential services and what can we do for those non-essential services. You'll hear some discussion later tonight during my administration report to ask you about future board meetings and some of the plans that we have for workshops, and do you want to continue those? Many of you got a reference or some information from the Arkansas Municipal League. I would encourage you to read over that as it relates to COVID-19 and what other cities are doing. And then finally, I would just ask that the public be patient with the city and the services. It's a time that we've never seen, And as I told staff earlier yesterday morning, it's an extraordinary time and it's going to require extraordinary measures. And we're all going to be put out a little bit. But we've got to get through this mess, and I believe we will. We will come out the other side, but it's going to take some time. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. All right, now we'll move into our public input period on the agenda. This is the time when the public may address this city board on any city business that is not listed on the agenda. If you wish to come forward and address the board, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and move on from there. Tell us what you would like to tell us. We'd like to try to limit your time to close to 3 minutes if you can. If that doesn't work, we'll work with you.
Frank Johnson, 721 South Lincoln Street, Siloam Springs, 72761. It sure is nice to appear here again one more time. I've been here in this room quite a few times, and it's nice to be here and see everybody again. The city manager was talking about service calls by the fire department. I happened to have one on Friday evening. I was down the street, excuse me, at my church at an event, and my wife had looked forward to this event all week, but she said something was urging her not to attend. If she had attended, would have probably lost half my house due to a fire. A young man came walking in as we were getting ready to go into the event in the sanctuary and said, "Are you Mr. Johnson?" I said, "I sure am. I believe your house is on fire." So I swallowed real big, walked down there. She sent the neighbor down to get me. And I just want to say how proud I am of the people that came and took care of the situation. Very polite, very stern. My wife wanted to run back in the house and get the cat that she didn't know what happened. They said, "No, you're not." They got the cat for her. And that was above and beyond the call of duty, I'm sure, but we're just so proud of them. I'm proud of the fire department and how what they mean to this city, and I'm equally proud of all the city workers. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Frank. Next time, tie that cat up someplace else in the house where they can't find it so fast. Oh, that wasn't where your intention, was it? Oh, my. Anyone else? If not, then we will move on to our regularly scheduled items. First on the agenda tonight is Dennis Kendi. And Dennis has two particular purchases to bring forward the board for Public Works, and I've asked him to go ahead and make his presentations for both of these two items at the same time. And if you'll just hold off until he's ready for questions, and you can ask questions about them, and then when we get ready to address them, we will still need two motions to approve, two separate motions to approve. Dennis.
Mr. Mayor, Board, Dennis Kendi, Street Department Superintendent. Sorry, I'm working with this computer a little bit. Like to present a couple of motions for you all to consider on buying some new dump trucks, one for the infrastructure division and one for the street division. The truck that's up on the screen, we are looking to replace in the infrastructure division. This is a 1995 dump truck. It's a Ford, which Ford hasn't made large dump trucks in a long time, so it's getting harder to get parts and to be able to maintain this vehicle. And we wish to replace it with a truck that looks like this. This is a 3-axle dump truck instead of a 2-axle dump truck because of being able to haul more material. So we've went to a little bit bigger truck than what we used to run. Being that we lay our own asphalt, it just helps with that. The recommendation is to purchase a Kenworth dump truck for the amount of $143,189.91. If you look down, it is a budgeted item, and the budgeted item was $155. We run into a little bit of an issue, so you can see there's a pretty good discrepancy. But that had to do with the truck actually came in over budget. So me and the sales representative did some check-in and stuff and got a different bed company to do the bed, and it actually wound up saving us some money. So, and with that, we'll move to the next one. This is the 1996 model dump truck. These two trucks that we're getting rid of were bought 1 year apart. This truck is one of our snowplow and sander trucks for the wintertime, plus when it's not loaded with the winter equipment, we use it on a daily basis for all other sorts of uses. This is what we wish to buy. This is a new truck. Now it's 2-axle instead of single axle, but it's basically the same size of truck, only we went with a dual axle so we could haul a little bit more weight. And then you can see the new sandbox and the new plow will come with this. This will be a combination rig to do multiple things. And this is in the street division. And we would like to present this for purchase from MHC Kenworth at a cost of $174,541.22. And with that, staff is available for any questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. And according to the report, you came in about $500 under budget on this particular item as well. So,
Yes, that one was really close to budget.
yes.
So,
Okay. Philip, you got something?
Dennis, those two trucks were 95 and 96, is that right?
yes, sir.
So that's about 25 years of use on those trucks. Will we get the same amount of use out of these, you believe?
I believe so. We tend to get a lot of use out of them because they're just mainly in the city. There's not lots and lots of road miles put on them. But with the quality of vehicles versus the quality 25 years ago, the metal's not as good and stuff like that, but I do think so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to tell Dennis, thank you for working with the representative to get the price down. I remember sitting out here before getting on the board, sometimes thinking, wow, that's a lot of money we're spending on these different pieces of equipment. But it's all money that's budgeted, and we know that you all do what you can to bring the cost down, so thank you for working on that.
Now, those trucks are almost as old as Dennis, aren't they?
Yes.
That was a good thing for you, Dennis, what I said, yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol.
I move that we approve the purchase of a new Kenworth dump truck from the MHC Kenworth in the amount of $143,189.91.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes?
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. I'll now entertain a motion to approve on the purchase of the street division dump truck with snowplow in the amount of $174,541.22.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is Arkansas Department of Health grant for the fire department for EMS training and equipment and supplies in the amount of $11,329. Donnie, come on down.
Mayor, Board, Donnie Jorgensen, Division Chief of EMS. I'm asking tonight for a approval to our acceptance for our Department of Health grant. This is a reoccurring grant. Last year, it come in at a little over $6,000. This year it came in at $11,329. This is a 100% reimbursable grant. So once we expend the funds, then we present the receipts and they reimburse us for up to that amount. We're wanting to use it this year to buy some advanced airway training mannequins, some batteries for our heart monitors, and then just some trauma supplies. These are stuff that we would normally have to spend our budgeted money for, but with this being a grant reimbursable, then we're requesting to be able to do it that way. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Donnie. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor,
Carol?
I do have a question, and I don't even know how to pronounce it. There's 4 of them, and it starts with a C, and it's kits. What is that?
What that is that is a cricothyrotomy kit, and it's where we can actually cut a hole in someone's
Okay,
throat
do
and
that.
put an airway in.
Okay. I kind of thought that's what it was, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Lisa?
I'm glad we had an increase. Is there a reason we had an increase?
It has to do with the amounts that the state gives to the trauma funds every year, and it just varies depending on number of calls and how much we use the trauma system.
So shows that you guys have been doing a lot then.
We've been doing more than in the past, yes, so it's quite a bitly increased.
Great job.
Now, the state of Arkansas has a little bit of extra money that this year. Their income, everything that's come in has come in above anticipated, so that's helping out. And I love to see the state give some of that back to the cities. Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol?
I move that we approve a grant from the Arkansas Department of Health in the amount of $11,329,000 for the purchase of EMS training equipment and supplies.
Motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Go spend that money, Donnie. Just don't spend as much as Dennis is planning on spending, because you don't have approval for that. All right, next, we have the last purchasing contract here. It's a purchase for Public Works Department, Wastewater Division, lift station replacement, instrument and supply company in the amount of $57,900. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Steve Gorzak, Public Works Director. We have 18 lift stations scattered throughout the city, and the majority of those are pushing 20 years old. So about 3 years ago, I started a program where we would begin to replace these lift stations. And by replacing, I mean we're replacing the critical items of the stations, which is the 2 pumps. Every station has 2 pumps, and then the control panel, which has all the electrical equipment. The rest of the station, which is basically an oversized manhole and aluminum lids and things like that, is all in good shape. So, but we're needing to start replacing pumps. We've had some problems with the pumps, getting them new and getting all the controls new is our goal here, so that we can get another 20 years out of these stations. For 2020, we've got 2 stations in mind. One is for Mallory Woods lift station, and the other is for Mount Olive. The Mallory Woods lift station went out for bid, and we followed the city code and the bidding requirements. And as you can see in your staff memo, there was only one supplier that provided a bid, and that was Instrument and Supply out of Hot Springs for $57,900. The amount budgeted for the lift station improvements for 2020 is $80,000. The budgeted amount will cover the cost to replace the Mallory Woods lift station, and then the remaining funds will be used to complete the upgrades at the Mount Olive lift station. And with that, staff is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol.
where is the lift station on Mount Olive?
It's just past Rains Road to the south. There's a dip,
The dip?
and it's at the
Okay.
bottom in that dip. Yeah.
And will the remainder of the 80,000 be sufficient to cover the upgrades to that one? I mean, you're not replacing it, but you're upgrading that one?
Right.
Okay.
And we'll come in with the budgeted amount. We'll come in just under that. We'll be about 73,000 or so. That's including the 57.9.
Why do you suppose the other two didn't bid? Do you know?
That's a good question. Pumps are pumps. I would have thought, but evidently it's either my guess would be the phasing on the pumps, and then the second would be that these lift stations, as opposed to say the one that's behind Simmons, the pumps aren't as big. The pumps behind Simmons are 40 horsepower. These are far smaller than that.
So we've been replacing the lift stations for the last 3 years. You've been doing upgrading on them.
Right.
How many have we taken care of?
In the last 3 years, I was thinking we did 3, but the only 2 that came to mind right off the top of my head was we have 2 over at Baptist Assembly. One's at the camp over on the west side, and then the other one is up the hill north of the camp, and basically just east of Country Acres. But those 2 have gone through a complete replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Bob.
I move that we approve the purchase of a replacement lift station from Instrument and Supply Company to replace the Mallory Woods lift station in the amount of $57,900.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Excuse me. Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Excuse me. Next would be ordinances, and we'll start with ordinance 20-404, third reading, amending chapter 22 for businesses / mobile food vending. Ben Rhodes. This is the Ben Rhodes Show, folks.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I'm Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Before you is the third reading of staff requested update for the city business code with respect to the mobile vending units for our food trucks. Staff has not received any additional comments on this since the first reading, and we are still recommending approval and stand by for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience for staff? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Marla?
Ben, I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you, of course. I wanted to know why we're decreasing the 300 to 200, and I don't know if I agree with that, because during the Dogwood Festival, it's very expensive for the people that are at the Dogwood Festival to set up, and the fees that they have to pay, and the money that the city gets from them through the taxes and stuff. And if we allow the ones that are here normally to move closer, I think that anything with the Dogwood Festival ought to be licensed through the Dog Festival or signed up through the Dog Festival for, credit for them. And so that's kind of a question and a statement, but I really want to know why we're letting them get closer to the Dogwood Festival.
It's not letting them get closer, it's letting them stay where they are.
Okay.
So the current court, if you're familiar, the one on Alpine and Mount Olive, there's 2 food trucks there right now. By the current rules, they would have to move every time the Dogwood Festival comes into town. We want to let them stay where they are. Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought, and I just didn't want to go out and say, are you doing that for the people that are already here? But I figure that was the reason, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol?
I move that we place ordinance number 20-4 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Third reading.
Third reading.
Third reading.
Oh, third reading? I'm sorry.
What she says third, except for second.
Second.
And there's the second, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to suspend. Roll call?
Olman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-04, an ordinance amending Chapter 22 of the Municipal Code with respect to mobile food vending.
Thank you, Philip. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 20-04.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion to adopt? Being none, we'll vote on the motion to adopt. Roll call?
Carroll,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-04 is approved, adopted. Ordinance 20-05, second reading, amending Chapter 54, Land Use Code, Final Plats. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Board. Before you is the second reading for the code update to the land use code for the final plat review process in Chapter 54. As a reminder, the proposed code allows for final plats that have matching preliminary plats to bypass the Planning Commission and go directly to the board for approval. This is expediting the review process. Staff remains supportive of this change and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments or questions for staff from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve,
Mr. Mayor,
to replace, suspend, excuse me, yes.
I move that we place ordinance number 20-05 on its, did we not talk about second and third reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only?
We did talk about that.
Well, I'm going to put that in the motion to
Want it to go to second and third?
second and third.
Okay.
Second, that one. Victor Smiley.
Brad Burns that did that,
It
made that
was.
second?
We're just planting seeds.
Okay. We have a motion and a second that we're placing ordinance 20-05 on its second and third reading, suspending rules and reading title only. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to suspend. Roll call?
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Philip? Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 54, Land Use Code of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code with respect to the final plat review process.
Thank you, Philip. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 20-05.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve or to adopt? Being none, we will vote on the motion to adopt. Roll call?
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Next is ordinance 20-06, second reading, amending Chapter 102, zoning for automobile sales. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Board. So you're looking at the second reading for the proposed code change to restrict private sales of automobiles in non-commercial zones. This is limiting to no more than 5 sales for the previous 12 months. Staff remains supportive of the code change, and we stand by for any questions, and we did not receive any new comments on this one either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff. Being none, I'll entertain a motion to suspend on ordinance 20-06.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol.
I move that we place ordinance number 20-06 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to suspend on ordinance 20-06, second reading. Roll call?
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-06, an ordinance amending Chapter 102 zoning of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code with respect to motor vehicle sales in residential areas.
All right, ordinance 20-07 has been withdrawn by applicant as of March 5, 2020. And it won't appear on our agenda for, a year? Or no, they've kept withdrawing.
It's been withdrawn.
They've withdrawn,
It's
so
been-
we don't know the outcome. They've withdrawn it, so it did fail or anything like that. So it's up to them as whether they want to bring it back, whatever. All right, but it won't be on next board's meeting. Okay, that finishes our ordinances. Now we'll move into resolutions. The first resolution is 16-20, final plat development permit for Ridgestone Duplex Addition, 3897 East Kenwood Street. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Board. So transitioning to final plats for your consideration this evening is a final plat occurring at the Ridgestone Duplex Subdivision, and that's at 3897 East Kenwood Street. This is the first final plat of the three recent preliminary plats that were approved along East Kenwood last 12 months. You will note here some areas that I would like to point out. First is the detention areas. The site is quite flat, and so there is some extra detention that is needed. These were shown in the preliminary plat, and so they were being constructed per that design. There is a planned street connection to Timothy here. I'll circle that. Agreement has been done with the property owner to the west to dedicate the needed right-of-way for a street, so it will, because that street passes off the subject property. So that agreement has been made at this point. The exact timing as to the street construction is not known at this time, but it is in the works. Therefore, staff has suggested that a plat note be added to the subdivision plat that would match the approved condition from the preliminary plat, and that is to state that the lots here on the northern end of the subdivision would not be allowed to be built on until that street connection is done. So that would be on the plat and is binding with the plat. So moving on to the drone view here, this is the site looking to the north. As you would see in the staff suggested condition, the applicant has offered an irrevocable letter of credit to complete any uncompleted work. The current status of the subdivision is much further along than this photo, which was taken a little more than a month ago. Presently, the asphalt is down, I believe, on 2 of the 3 streets, and utilities are in, and they still need to pour in sidewalks and finish some of the detention ponds. We estimate approximately 2 to 3 weeks away from completing the subdivision, and that is weather permitting. Of course, when it's wet weather, that will delay that. The first condition listed in the resolution has been met at this point. That was the letter, irrevocable letter that has been turned in, and I believe is here this evening. The second condition covers the construction of vertical structures associated with the building permits. So authorization will be needed to be given by the fire marshal to ensure proper emergency access is available to those structures upon building permit issuance. The second and third conditions are standard for all final plats, and staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval with the stated conditions, and we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience of staff, for staff? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff.
Mayor, Ben, on the storm sewer system, you are using wet basins. Do we have others in the city?
I do believe we have a few others. I can't name where they are, but I do know that we have used them. Yeah.
Any problem with snakes and mosquito infestation in those?
I'm not aware of any. They will be putting up safety measures to keep people from getting into these wet basins.
Right, and we'll make sure those are fences up to keep kids out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Mindy?
I just have a question, and this may be for Philip. We've talked about Kenwood and the need to make some improvements. I know the county's not kicking in any, or at least that's what I understood. They've decided not. So where are we on thinking about Kenwood improvements?
Well, we've are in the process of trying to study how to fund the Kenwood improvements. Part of that is going to be what Don will present later today with, or later tonight with the street fee changes. But trying to schedule that improvement along with the other needed road improvements that we have is the juggle that we're making. There's 300 dwelling units that have been approved out there. They're not all going to be built day one. It's not the need isn't going to be there immediately when all of these are platted. But if you get to the street fees and the master street plan later tonight and you approve that, our proposal will be that, you know, those new homeowners will help pay for that through a street impact fee. And then over time, we'll recoup some of the money. Developers will be making half-street improvements in front of their subdivision. And then we'll start looking, as we start planning the 2021 budget, we'll be looking at what streets we need to do in 2021. It's likely this street will be 2022 or 2023 because it's a very expensive project. But trying to do that 3-year plan is we're working on it. You are right. I've had a number of meetings with the county. And the county's view of the world is this is too close to the city for them to participate in, even though the ownership is sort of a hodgepodge of city and county ownership. So there are some options with the state street committee to possibly try to get them and put that into that project. And that's one of the things we want to do, but we want to get the design down and we want to try to schedule it out in case that doesn't happen, and so that we can do it on our schedule also.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So, hey, Ben, so on this, as we're developing these wet prairies, and I think this picture is a great example of the homeowner to the west that was talking about how wet it is all the time out there. And we build these retention areas and we fence them in because it makes us feel good. So who maintains that? Because we've run into that problem before where we have drainage areas and then we have to go back years later and clean them up because they don't get maintained. So fencing in a wet area out here means significant growth and Director Coleman's correct, animal life, which if you're a young child and you're out of school, it's going to be a fantastic time. But so who maintains that when they fence it in?
The city. The city maintains them.
Our responsibility. Thank you, sir.
That's my understanding. Is the residential detention, the city are maintaining this.
It is the city's process has been that we maintain those facilities. We have had a number of discussions internally. And at some point, you may see a proposal from staff to start requiring residential developments to maintain their own detention facility because as we keep building them, it becomes more and more. And Ben, no offense, I want to ask Don to come up here. I don't believe, Director Coleman, you asked about fences. Director Burns, you mentioned fences again. It is not, I don't believe the city's requirement is that these places be fenced. And I think Ben, no offense, misspoke when he mentioned that there would be fences around these detention ponds. Don, is that?
So the drainage manual does allow for wet basins when there's fences put in with them. So those fences have to meet our standards. The one that I can think of is off of North Carl near I can't remember the cross street, but it's near Sherry Whitlock Express. There's one that's there and it has the fence around it. It would be something similar to that if it's a continual wet basin is what our drainage manual will allow.
The case are all of these, there's 6 properties, if Ben can go back to the plat, there's 6 properties, 6 parcels that are intended to have drainage basins, the 3 at the bottom of the screen and the 3 in the center. Are all of those intended to be wet basins, or are some of those intended to be truly detention ponds with trickle channels? Do you know?
I don't know. I think they're which I believe the ones that you saw kind of almost being constructed, the ones along the west are intended to be wet basins. The other ones, I believe, and I could get back to you at the next meeting just to update you, but I believe those are designed to be trickle channels.
Mayor.
Yeah, I think he's got a follow up.
I was going to say the rep is here. She could
Would you like
probably
to come
speak to it.
forward? Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Allie Carr with Craft and Toll. Yes, Dawn was correct. The 2 larger ones on the west are the wet detention ponds, and then the 2 more narrower ones on either side are the dry concrete trickle channels that will allow the stormwater to convey from the east side of the property to the west into the ponds.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I have
Marla.
spoken with 2 residents of this area. The drainage is a main concern. Their house is filled with water, basically. And my concern is, are we creating a large enough area to catch the water? What's the natural drainage of the land? Are we pushing it in a place that we don't know if it's going to go that direction or not? And I would like to see like the drainage pattern on that piece of property and see how it drains towards the west or towards the street, or can we force it somewhere else?
Ben,
I'm scared about the drainage.
Could you show us the previous picture that shows the project in the
This one?
Oh,
Or
no,
that-
the area there.
Yeah, that's not drainage.
But that's the situation you're discussing, and as you can see, a lot of water off to
Right.
the west. Up there
There's
already.
water all around it, and that soil doesn't perk like it needs to. It doesn't let it filter down through. It's cabled there. And I don't want us to be pushing any more problems on those to the west.
I think that's a fair comment. When we initially looked at the project, that was a challenge, the drainage, because it's so flat. The reason there are, normally in a subdivision, you have 1 detention basin. As you can see, there are 6. So the reason being is they are putting in additional infrastructure to handle the drainage for this site, and our engineer has looked at it, and it meets the standards of our drainage manual to not increase water flow off the property.
So I can address
Okay,
the
I'll need you
drainage
to
a little more.
restate your name.
Okay,
It's for the
Allie-
audio portion.
Allie Carr, Craft and Toll. So as Ben just said, we do have 2 detention ponds, and that is due to the flatness of this site. We were able to break the way that we have graded the site and designed the roads to drain was to allow the site to be split between those 2 ponds so that we could provide adequate drainage across the site. And as you can see, the aerial image that we saw previously, that was after the large rainfall that we've seen this winter and spring. And so you can see the grove of trees to the northwest of the site. The site generally drains that direction. And so after meeting with staff and meeting all the requirements in the drainage manual, we are providing adequate stormwater, both conveyance and detention ponds for the site to meet post-construction flows that do not increase over pre-development flows.
On the basins, are they going to have level sides, or are they going to be built up around the edge?
They will have a berm.
A
and
berm.
so to meet, and that is another requirement in the drainage manual, that they have to have a foot of freeboard from where our calculated 100-year water surface elevation would be to the top of that berm. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve on Resolution 16-20.
Mayor,
Yes,
make a motion to approve Resolution 1620, authorizing a final plat development permit for 3897 East Kenwood, subject to recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Have we
Marla.
addressed the fencing issue of the basins?
I think that was answered in that is required on those basins, on those wet basins. There is a fence. That's part of the
Right.
code that they will have. It's incumbent upon the developer to furnish fencing around that. If there's no further questions, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Rissler.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Excuse me. Smiley.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is resolution set. And thank you for your attendance, and thank you for your technical input on that. Thank you very much.
Allie.
And Mark, the paper is trying to reach you there. All right, next is resolution 17-20, amending the City of Siloam Springs Master Street Plan. Don Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board. So in front of you tonight for your approval is a resolution authorizing amendments to the Master Street Plan. So what I'm going to do is bring up a presentation here to kind of walk you through how we got to where we are. So what you see there currently is and I'll recall you've probably seen some of this. There was a staff presentation, I believe, on July the 2nd, where Justin came before you and gave you an update of where we were with moving through the amendments for the street fees on the Master Street Plan portion, and that's what we have here. So current street fees uses this formula that you see up there in front of you right now. This intent is for developers to pay their proportionate share of cost to improve the streets. This is based upon how much traffic the development creates and how far away they are from the improved road. So I'll give you some, later on, I'll give you some particulars to look at, but just one I can think of is Kenwood Street. We were just talking about it. So if you recall, there were 3 different developments along Kenwood Street. And so the one developer that was located here would have a fee, and then the one located here would have a separate fee, which is pretty tough, to defend sometime. Also, it sounds simple, but it's pretty complicated to calculate because of all the different variables involved. And then on the other side of that, when developers come in, they typically want to know what their impact fees are, and we can tell them the water and sewer tap fees, but when it gets to the street fee, we just kind of say, we're not really sure. And that's tough sometimes. So the intent, staff believes the intent of the approach was to discourage urban sprawl or development on the far edges of town. So basically, the further out in the system you were, the higher the fee. However, there are exemptions that went to this current policy and calculation. The development connects to an improved city street that existed more than 7 years. The development connects to state or county streets. The 7 years is a state law that limits the collection of impact fees up to a 7-year period, is why that was in there. Fees are also, it were exempted if they were connected to the state or county streets. We didn't collect those fees, or we currently don't collect those fees under the current system. There are also complexities such as portions of the connecting street are in the county and portions of it are in the city that create a lot of complexities, multiple substandard street connections, and so on. So there's, times throughout the years that this has created some inequity of how we come up with this fee and calculate it and what the developer ends up paying. So I'll give you some examples here. So the Shadowland subdivision, I never drawn this before, so bear with me. Located here, I believe, here at the corner of Don Hill and Oakcrest that you see there that I circled. These lots had 7 lots and had a fee of roughly $2,300 per lot. The fee was high because of the long stretch of Don Hill Road. So, Don Hill Road is here, and because they were at the end, that's why the fee was calculated so high for those 7 lots, which was around an estimated $2,300 per lot. In a similar part of town, for the first phase of Stone Ridge, you see that there was $10,000 a lot for those 30 lots in that first phase. But by the time they came around with their second phase, there was no fees, street fees that were assessed on that because it was beyond that 7-year period that I spoken of before. So there are 3 drastically different street fees for residential lots that are fairly close in proximity to each other. But you can see how it makes it difficult for staff or developer to know what to expect of what the fee would be. Show you some more current street fees policy, some things that we had. So the Simmons plant you see there was $11,000 for a street fee for a 86,000 square foot building. Gunter's addition was $0 for the 30 lots there. Burger King, because it was off of 412, under our current policy, we don't collect fees off of the state highway or county, so there was no street fees assessed to that project. And the Plaza, which is a shopping center right next door to the shops that has multiple different vendors could be in with different driving uses. No street fees were assessed to those projects because they were connected to a state highway. So what we are doing, I'll go over the proposed change. So what we're looking to do is a 2-pronged approach. So the street impact fee and then frontage improvements to get to where we need to be. To make the system more equitable, staff believes that where we're going with this 2-pronged approach is going to be the best. So again, the first prong is to assess the street fee strictly based upon traffic created by the development. So the intent of the proposed fee structure is to look at the city street system as a whole and calculate a flat fee that could be used. So again, when we talk to people and they want to know, we can quote them a flat fee up front of what their street fees would be depending on their project. This fee was calculated by dividing the cost to build out the system by the total number of trips expected within the system. And those trip ins, that staff uses a traffic manual to help us, come up with those trip in numbers per different use. So as you see here, the cost to build out the system, staff estimates it would cost approximately $62 million to build out all of the master street plan collector and arterial streets within the city. For the number of trips within the system, staff used GIS to analyze the city. All existing developed property and its use was taken into consideration. So each parcel and what the use was taken into consideration. Staff then cross-referenced the undeveloped parcels with the future land use plan and calculated the future trips that could be added. This came to a total of, if you see there, almost 2.5 million trips, as you see at the bottom, the circle. So the proposed policy for the streets, so if you take those 2 numbers that you see here and do the math, it comes to about $25.64 per trip. The great thing about having this number is that it can be used with traffic engineering manuals to calculate a fee for any use. So depending on what the use is, it'd be commercial, residential, we can calculate that fee pretty quickly and say, and know what the fee will be. Again, I've joked with our engineering staff and said that you needed some type of quantum physics degree to figure out the previous calculation. Now, someone as such as myself, if I get that phone call, I could tell them pretty quickly what their fees would be based upon their proposed use. So single family residents under the new fee would be $245.37 per per residence. A duplex, triplex, or apartment unit would be $169.99. This is a little less than a single family because they average a lot less than the trips per day for multifamily. For retail, commercial, this fee is applied per 1,000 square foot of floor area to the rate of $1,100.47. One of the biggest traffic generators would be fast food. And if you remember looking before, there was a new use on 412 that had to pay no street fees, but they have a lot of trip-ins per the manual. So the manual shows up to 496 trips per day per 1,000 square foot of floor area. This puts the fee roughly at about $13,000 per 1,000 square foot. However, staff feels that it would be unfair to apply all the trip-ins, for that fee. This is because some of the development is often a pass-by trip. So if I'm traveling here, I'll stop in and grab a burger on my way to Walmart, but I'm going to Walmart anyway. So that would be how we thought about that. So to account for these pass-by trips, staff recommends a discount of up to 50%. This is an accepted adjustment through the traffic engineering manuals that staff uses. So to kind of give you an idea of what this would look like for some of the recent projects that you've seen. So, I told you before, Simmons, if you see there, 86, almost 87,000 square feet. The old fee was 11,000. The new fee would be around 15,000. Then again, if you look at the shops and the plaza that was built up on Highway 412, we collected no fees. Under the new policy, we would collect fees. And then you also see where like the Nottingham Apartments, the old fee they were going to pay, they paid around 25,000, but with the new fee they will actually pay a little bit less, so it will balance itself out. But there's quite a variety in the difference between the new and the old. This goes to show how the old fee is vary significantly. So this shows some quick calculations for how much the street fee would have collected over the last 2 years based upon building permits. This can vary from year to year depending on the type of development and the pace of development changes. But it kind of gives you a snapshot of what we could have collected over those couple years. One last note I want to bring up, the staff did conduct a meeting with developers to let them know of this impending change in October of 2019, and it was well received. There were a few comments about the fee overall and some questions about how it was to be applied, and so we answered those questions at that time. Staff took some of those small comments into consideration and did make some minor adjustments in the proposed amendment. So the second part, again, I talked about a two-pronged approach. The second part of the proposed changes for frontage improvements. This has been done previously on certain developments in Siloam, such as Deer Lodge subdivision on Carl Street. You can see on the east side that the street was developed. So there's the road was widened slightly. The storm sewer and curb and gutter and sidewalk was added. In addition, the additional right-of-way per the master street plan was dedicated. In the future, the other side of the road would either be improved by another developer or the city as part of the road project. But this is an illustration to show how we can get those improvements to happen when they develop instead of later on. So, certain areas to go ahead and get developed, and we can catch up with them as we, bring those changes to you through updates with Public Works and improvement streets. Other changes, we came to you a few weeks ago with the update to the master connectivity plan, and then there was a suggestion in there that we also add a definition, but there's a question about what's the difference between sidewalk and side pass. So there's definitions added to the master street plan that basically explains the difference between the two. This is done to emphasize that side paths are acceptable for bikes to ride on in our city, since it is against the code in our city to ride a bicycle on a sidewalk. A second change are a few revisions to the engineering roadway design values. These numbers are basically being rolled back to a previous version of the master street plan, to where the street design speeds are lower and more in line with what the posted speed limits are. So this will help the drivers driving too fast because the curves wouldn't be designed for that. It was also help with development because the streets could better fit a site with a smaller curve radii. So there's also a minor change to the map itself. If you look circled there in blue, this is the alignment for Simon Sager that's been approved to be for the northern section to be continued to be improved, and it's underway right now. But the alignment itself has been updated upon the corridor for where it actually will be built. So staff does believe that by updating these and having this amendment that we should see a positive impact to the city fiscal impact to the city street fund. And staff recommends approval and stand ready for any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor?
Mindy?
Don, I agree. It took a degree in some sort of higher level, math, physics, whatever, to figure out the street fees before. But the new street fees that you are proposing, are they pretty comparable to what a developer would pay in another town our size?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes, that was also part of what staff did, is that analysis. We looked at other cities similar to our size and similar to our experience in our type of growth, and it was right in line.
Mr. Mayor.
Marla?
Don, is there a place in the requirements that we specify whether they can put in sidewalk or side path?
So that's another great question. So what we used is that the map that you guys saw in that updated connectivity plan. So some of those developments you've seen recently come through where it designates in that plan for it to be a side path, they have to put in the side path. If it's designated to be sidewalk, then they would just put in the sidewalk at that time. But that document drives that discussion for those projects.
Are we looking at future placement of schools and buildings when we ask about the side paths?
That's another great question. So also this year, we do, try to think about our growth, but that's another reason why, the update to the comprehensive plan that came before you the last meeting is why that's going to be very important, because that helps drive that discussion as well. That would bring in those stakeholders such as the school district and look at where they see their potential growth and make sure we're matching that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Any other great questions?
Mayor.
You were on the same page as Don was, weren't you, Marla? Your thinking, your brainwaves were linked there. You bet. All right.
Sorry, Ben. I clicked.
Carol, I'm sorry.
I don't really have any questions. I do know that street fees have always been difficult. For as long as I've been on the board, when I was on the planning commission, that was a big issue. And I know that I have to commend the time that you probably have spent on this, because there is a lot of reading material in here. And I'm glad to see this become a little bit more manageable. It's a little bit more in layman terms that I can understand a little bit better, and I appreciate that. So I commend you on this effort.
Yeah, I'd like to also give a plug to the engineering department who spent the bulk of the time of this. I'm the guy in the room, the layman's guy, who would say, okay, make it make sense to me, and they were able to do so. So I know that anybody can understand it if I can digest it. And so I'm here presenting that today because Justin couldn't be here. So I'd like to make sure that the engineering staff, and the GIS and analysts as part of that staff, they put a lot of time into this, and so made it easier for me to get up here and present it.
Then I thank Justin and his staff as well. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I got to find it. I move that we approve. Here, I can get it. It's right here. That we approve resolution number 17-20, authorizing amendments to the master street plan.
Second.
We got a motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Coleman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Don. Philip, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. I'm going to ask Don to come back up here and just give the Board a brief update on the redesign process for East Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Philip. Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. So this is an update to kind of bring you up to speed of where we are with the East Main Street project. There's been some things that, has come before you as far as the budget amendment and approving of the grant and the updated agreement with Craft and Toll for that design portion. So I thought it would be good to come up and give an update. So just a reminder, this was a 2017-2018 board goal to support the downtown master plan by developing strategies and programs to update the street design and streetscape of East Main. So on October 16, 2018, the board approved a contract for us to go enter in with Craft and Toll for preliminary design. On February 25th, 2019, if you recall, there was a design workshop, or a charrette, if you will, that took place, a 4-day workshop where the consultant came and set up shop in the corridor. And during that time, there were 2 public meetings, 3 walk audits of this section of East Main. There were also 21 individual one-on-one property owner meetings that were conducted and 2 steering committee meetings. The input that was gathered at those meetings kind of drove the preliminary design of the project. March 5th, 2019, kind of booking into that, there was a joint workshop with the board of directors and the planning commission where the designer came and kind of did a debrief of the 4-day design workshop and presented the preliminary design to the board and the planning commission at that time. Later on May 21st of 2019, staff and the consultant conducted a workshop to present the design and supporting information and findings that led to the design that we had at that time and that we currently have, and the process of getting us to the 30% of completed plans. November 5th of 2019, the board voted to accept the grant from the Walton Family Foundation. Staff noted at that time that one of the requirements for accepting that grant was to host one more public meeting for further input on the preliminary design prior to June of 2020. Excuse me. February 4th of this year, the board approved a contract amendment with Craft and Toll to complete the engineering drawings and specifications for the East Main Street project. So the goal of the public meeting will be to get input on the 30% preliminary design to allow for the consultant, if you recall, in that amendment that was approved on February 4th, was to get us to 60 and 90% design sets, the final design, so we can review and to get pricing to come up with a more up-to-date and what we hope to be a more realistic number for what that project will actually cost. If you recall, we had a workshop earlier talking about the funding, and there was a high number because there was a lot of unknowns at that point in time. Getting the plans in detail and getting construction drawings would allow us to get realistic numbers and go actually out to vendors in the construction world and say what that pricing would be. It was our staff's intention to announce a date for that tonight, but we're holding off on doing so until we get a more clarity on the ongoing public health situation. So we didn't want to come up and say, hey, we're having this meeting, just to turn around and postpone it or have to move it. So as soon as we get that a handle on that, what we feel is that we're going to be safe to do so, we will make sure that is public. We will advertise it. We will make sure that we promote it and market so everyone knows the date and time and location of that meeting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. Yeah.
So I have a number of things to report tonight. One of the things I wanted the board to be aware of, we spent a significant amount of money tonight, you did, on vehicles, on dump trucks. Christina and I have had numerous conversations about what we're going to do if we see a downturn in our sales tax and in our revenues related to the crisis that we're in, the COVID-19. So we're watching that. It'll be a couple of months before we see any impact in sales tax. Sales tax is typically, by the time we get it, what I'm reporting tonight as being February sales tax is really probably sales tax that was spent in December. It's about 2 months behind. That's how long it takes to collect it and get it dispersed to the cities. So we're watching that, and if we start seeing that we're taking a significant hit, we're going to be not recommending as many purchases as may be budgeted in the budget. We've already started talking to staff about looking at priorities from the standpoint of specifically those funds that are funded by sales tax, maybe not depreciation funds, but general capital funds and some of those things. So I want you to know that we are paying attention to that and watching that. I want to make a shout out to previous board member Lucas Roebuck, in case he's watching, which he apparently sometimes does. Lucas, we finally dealt with the street fees. I just wanted to shout out that to you so that you won't email me anymore about street fees. Been an ongoing thing since Lucas even was on the board. He had an issue about street fees, and I told him we would resolve it. I wanted to resolve it, and I wanted to thank staff, especially Justin, the engineer, for putting a lot of time in this. You have to understand impact fees. The calculation for impact fees have to be defensible in a court of law, and you have to look at what is the impact that we pay on streets and how that applies, and we can't saddle new residents with a greater impact than what we have. So that's been the long calculation process. I want to ask the board and staff and the city as a whole to keep the city of Hot Springs in their prayers and the family of the police officer who was killed in the line of duty on March 10th. The city of Hot Springs is going through that difficult time right now, and I think we ought to acknowledge that and keep them in our prayers. We had a couple of expenditures that I have to report. A small dump truck for electric department, $41,681, and also in the electric department for some pad-mounted transformers in the amount of $37,545. Spring cleanup is not being canceled. It is the week of April 6th, so we want to keep promoting that. As I stated earlier, February sales tax numbers are up. For the month, the city is up over 14.5% for February last year. Year to date, we're up 12%. The county is up on the month about 23%, and year to date about 17%. So those numbers are looking good for us at the moment. I'm going to come back to item 7 on my report and jump on down to number 8, and just again remind everybody in the public that at-large positions 5, 6, and 7 are up for re-election or up for election this year in November, as is the mayor's position. The filing deadline is May the 13th through noon on May the 28th. If anybody is interested in running for those positions, you need to get in touch with the city clerk's office and pick up a candidate package, collect the signatures, and submit that package between May the 13th and May the 28th. The primary election will be November 3rd with August the 11th, and the general election November 3rd. And then finally, we'd like everybody to vote in that election, and so if you haven't registered, you need to get out and register to vote by July 10th in order to do that. And speaking of getting everybody to participate, I want to state again, and you'll hear it from me for the next couple of board meetings, the 2020 census is very important to the city. So the letters should be going out yesterday, March 16th through the 21st, or reminder letters to fill out your census forms. You can fill it out online. You can fill it out in I think, Don, here at the city or at your office in community development. Is that correct? Maybe not? All right. Online, yes. And so April 1 is Census Day. It's going to be observed nationwide. And then through April and into May, they'll be sending out the final letters, the final reminders for everybody to fill out your census forms. And then in late May, they'll be following up with households who haven't filled out the form, and they'll be going door to door. So we ask everybody to fill out the census. It's very important to the city that we all be counted. A couple of the last things. We had a long discussion, a workshop at the last board meeting about the coffee with the board, town hall meetings, ward meetings, however you want to call them. You asked that I look into the community building. The dates that were originally set up don't work for the community building. Those dates, a number of those dates have already been reserved for birthday parties and things like that. So I was hoping it was a city event and I could maybe juggle it around, but I'm not going to ask a birthday party to be canceled. So we did find, instead of May 2nd, May the 16th, instead of August 15th, August the 22nd, we found those dates. If that is your interest to have that meeting at the community building, we could adjust those dates if that is your pleasure. So I need some feedback on that. And then lastly, as we talk about the COVID-19, we got a lot of information from the Municipal League. You've received information from Municipal League about how to deal with board meetings. And there's been a lot of discussion statewide about cities trying to have telecommuting board meetings, which is prohibited by the state. The Municipal League was recommending that we consider postponing a board meeting and not having it, or eliminating as many items on the agenda that aren't required, that don't need action. My concern is then we just continue to kick something down the road and not do that. But I want some feedback from the board about how you would like to see us handle this. We have a net metering workshop scheduled for April 7th. We've already sent out letters to the 20 some odd residents who have solar or renewable facilities, solar panels on their house. We have indicated to them that what our plans are, and that our plan is to have a workshop on the 7th. We've indicated to them also that as part of that proposal, we are also going to be proposing that existing facilities get a 10-year grandfathering clause, that any impact that changes rather that we propose to you, and should you adopt them, they don't affect existing customers that have solar panels today. But I need to kind of know if you want to continue that, because if not, I need to let those residents know that we may have to change that workshop under the umbrella of, as you can see, trying to have fewer people attend the meetings, which is difficult when we have public meetings and we want to hear from the public. So I'd like to just get a little bit of feel of how you would like us to go forward on that. And then the last thing, and Don, this is for you and Ben, and ask the Planning Commission to do the same. I'm going to ask you, when you leave here tonight, to lower your chairs before you push them under your desk. We are finding that the arms are wearing because we leave the chairs up and then we slide them under the desk, and there's a little edge under the desk right here that the arms are beginning to wear on. So either don't push your chair under the desk, or if you're going to do it, lower it. And I would ask you guys to ask the Planning Commission to do the same. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Philip. Yes, certainly this seems to be something that many cities all over the country are dealing with regard to the death of the police officer. Something that just another thing that is different for the times. The respect and all for our law enforcement has not been where it needs to be, or where it was when I was a kid, as I grew up. But maybe we'll get back. Fortunately, as Chief Gilbert has alluded to in a presentation he gave to the Kiwanis Club that I had an opportunity to attend, he brought up the fact that Siloam is kind of a difference in that comes, and that so far he has seen that the public does appreciate our police department. They do show that, and they reach out to them, and I'm proud of our city for that. And Chief Gilbert, I'm glad that you noticed that so quickly. Thank you for that. These sales tax figures sure do look good, the percentages anyways. I'm be interesting to see what the March sales tax are, because it's bound to peak with toilet paper sales alone. It's crazy, folks. I read an article today, and it was talking. They were interviewing some manufacturers and the people who manufacture and supply toilet tissue, and they say we can't supply any more than we're supplying right now. All our plants. This is about 4 different manufacturers that they interviewed. Every one of them has their plants running 24/7. Already were prior to any of this coming up. So if you don't need it, don't buy it, and let somebody else get it. And let's not panic. Let's not be part of that group that one of those cities that we get out and just get hysterical over something. It's not something to take lightly. Don't get me wrong as far as the COVID-19. That's not what I'm saying. But let's show some common sense and some respect for our fellow citizens, because not everybody can get out there when they know there's a truck coming and whatever like this. So let's just show some restraint, and then we can get through this thing a lot faster. And the stress won't be there on the people who are under extra pressure that they didn't need. All right, I think that's probably enough for me, having said what I just said. And so I will now turn it over to Director Sappington to start tonight.
Thank you,
And,
Mr.
Bur-
Mayor.
and now let me remind Director Burns that means that you get to adjourn, make the motion to adjourn this evening, if that's within your.
Write that down real quick.
You better write that down so you don't forget that. Okay, Marla.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reach out to the public and let them know that the Manna Center, we are so blessed right now. We have food. We are giving out food right and left. Yesterday we had 14 families. Today in 2 hours we had almost 30. And we closed and had 2 or 3 that come after hours. We are partnering with Bright Futures, and we're giving 80 boxes of food to 40 families that are they've been designated as special needs families for the school district. And on that, I want to ask the community to continue the support. They bring clothing in, they bring small household appliances, all those donations. We turn around the income from it and buy food. We do not have a big fundraiser. Our fundraiser is our community support, and that's why I'm reaching out to you all right now. We are in need of canned food items, shelf-stable items. If you have extra and want to drop it by, we are open. We are not letting our clients come in as normally. We're assisting them through the door and then just giving them a grocery cart of groceries to take to their car. And we're trying to limit as much contact as we can because of the requirements. And I just want to shout out for my volunteers. My volunteers, I have about 80 volunteers, and I only have 5 that are below the age of 40. Everybody else is in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they are still coming in. And I just want prayers for them, for their safety. They believe in what we're doing, and we want to continue to do that because we know with the situations going on, even if families are getting food stamps, have their SNAP cards, if there's no groceries in the store for them to buy, we want them to come to us. As businesses continue to shut down and public service places, we want the families to know, even if you're not in our income guidelines, we're not going to turn anybody away. And we're not just doing Siloam, we do an outreaching area. And I just want you all to know that the Manna Center's there for you. And I have another couple of things. My concerns is we're trying to social distance, but we're filling our parks up with children playing and families. And so I don't know where we stand on that, and that may be something we need to look at. The parks were full today when I went by, and it's like, oh, so we kind of need to look at that. And I want to encourage our citizens to get onto the city website and sign up for the notifications. I see recycling set out to the curb, and we have been sending out notices that we weren't picking up recycling. So if you get on the city's I call them listservs. I don't know what else you can call them, but the notifications, it'll let you know about the things that are going on in the city. And I think it's wonderful that the city's still going to allow us to have spring cleanup. And thank you.
Thank you, Marla. You were ready. Like, I can't imagine you having to wait
I know,
till the
I know.
last to get through that.
The Manna Center's heavy on my heart, and so it's
thank
easy
you.
to speak about.
Is Aunt Lurleen, is she still there?
No,
Have to retire?
he had to retire.
It's not my aunt. That's just what we called her.
Yeah, she was my grandma. Yes.
Lisa?
Please forgive me if you see me reading my director comments. I've had people make comments about that. I want to make sure I don't miss anything, so I write them out ahead of time. I hope and pray everyone stays safe from the coronavirus. Please remember this is a time for our community to come together in kindness and help one another. There are many of our citizens that are very high risk. Please look out for those individuals and make sure they have what they need to survive at this time. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook say, hey, if you're not able to get out, contact me and I'll do it for you. And I think that's great, and I commend those people. They are my heroes. I appreciate the many citizens that have contacted me regarding the East Main project, especially now with everything that's going on in our economy. I've heard many points of views and values, the opinion of our on the opinion of our residents. Also, I've also heard other board of directors repeatedly identify the same appreciation when citizens speak up. We've all encouraged the citizens to feel like they have a voice by contacting or connecting with us. After hearing what our citizens have to say, I think it would be best if we took this project to the vote of the people. I think this is a great scenario that we allow citizens to say what they want and not board of directors telling them what they will get. If citizens agree to this project, I will be in full support. If citizens decide they do not want this project, I will also be in full support. We are here to represent the citizens, and there's no better way to represent them than to give them a voice on an issue this large. I am making a formal request this be an agenda item for the board of directors to vote on. I have contacted a few agencies that have identified this project fits the criteria to take it to the people. And that's all I have.
Are you suggesting that of staff? Is that what you're doing? You're not asking for a vote right now?
No, in the future, yeah.
Reed?
Thank you, Mayor. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I do have a request for everyone to please respond on the census. And I want to give a shout out, a big thank you to the unity that we have seen with the city, with the Chamber of Commerce, with our school systems, public schools, JBU, hospitals, everyone that has worked together to combat the crisis we're in right now. And I think it's admirable what I've seen from our city, our community, and how we have responded to this. And I thank the efforts that have been done for that. Small business is going to be hit pretty hard with this. And even when the virus is under control, there's still going to be some damage that needs to be repaired financially for those that are doing what they can to social distance but also make a living. So we have a ways to go here. But from what I've seen from our community, the citizens, the city, I think we have the strength and the ability to do this and to do it with excellence. And I know that handshakes are a no-no right now, but a smile goes a long ways. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. Carol?
Well, actually, I'm going to read this because sometimes I just can't remember, so I just write it down. I am hopeful for the future, and I'm proud of the steps that the city has taken during this health crisis. This takes individuals and the community working together. We will get through this. In the meantime, be thoughtful of your elderly neighbors, your friends, family. Kudos to those stores that are setting aside a time for the elderly to shop. Most importantly, stay calm and use common sense. There are several sites for children 18 or younger for grab-and-go meals that the school is sponsoring, and apparently through the Manna Center there are some. I'm glad to hear that. You don't have to be a student at the school. You just have to be 18 or younger and their siblings. So breakfast items for the next day will also be handed out. Those sites are Allen Elementary, Siloam Springs Middle School, the Chacon Park, Spring Valley Apartments, the Siloam Springs. And I don't know about this. Since the library is closed, are they doing something in the parking lot? Bob Henry Park. And these sites are also posted on the Siloam Springs School District on Facebook. And various restaurants are offering free meals. I think that's great that a lot of the businesses are stepping up. I read today that there are 4 testing sites opening in Northwest Arkansas. One of them is in our town. It's the Siloam Springs Community Center. It's going to be Monday 8 to 5, Tuesday 8 to 7, Wednesday through Friday 8 to 5. I would suggest you call before you go in. We'll probably have some screening questions for you. And on a little happier note, I want to congratulate Kelsey Howard on her new position as Director of Operations for the Regional Arts Center Service Organization. It's kind of a twofold. We're going to miss her at the Main Street. She did a fantastic job, and she's going to be missed. And regarding the census, I have done mine online. You don't have to have a number. You just have to go online, Census 2020. It'll bring it up. They'll ask you for your address. Took me less than 10 minutes to fill out the census for myself and my husband. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, I was concerned for Kelsey and for the city at the Municipal League with all the attention she received and the honors that she received for her good work for our Main Street. And I came home and I told Kathy, I said, we may lose Kelsey because somebody's going to realize the potential we have there. And I think that was probably, some of that was already in the works. But anyway, that's yes, we want to wish her the best and thank her for what she's done for our Main Street. Mr. Bob?
But we want them all to do a good job, and that's the chance we take, you know. With regard to social distancing, one of the things that my wife and I have done is stop some trips to the grocery store and make the stop in our garage on our freezer. And over the last week, we've had some some delightful meals that we didn't even know were stored in that freezer. We've also played a couple of board games. I won't tell you that she cheats, but somehow she's been able to win most of them. But it doesn't keep us from having at it. It's good. But you know, there are lots of things that we can do to stay safe. And I don't think I've ever washed my hands so many times. I think I'm down 2 glove sizes. But that it's something we can do that's easy and it's very helpful. And with regard to the toilet paper shortage, I'm just looking for an answer to the question I have, and that was a technique people used before COVID-19. It's got to be some answer for it, but you know, there wasn't a shortage before that, and that's all I have. Philip was afraid I was going to recommend his method, but I'll hold on to that for a while.
Thank you. Mindy?
First, you had asked for some feedback from the board members about the Coffee with the Board and upcoming meetings. Were you wanting that feedback tonight, or?
Either tonight, or you can email me. Either tonight, or you can email me a comment. Either one.
Okay. As far as the Coffee with the Board, I'll go ahead and let you know tonight. I wonder, I mean, I would be fine with sticking with the library, and I wonder if that might be beneficial since those dates have already been out there. So that's probably what I would say for what I would think, unless something's changed.
Well, no, I was just letting him know graduation's May 16th.
Okay. So another reason to possibly just keep those meetings at the library with the original dates that have already been published by Lisa in the past. As far as the other upcoming meetings, I think we can just think on that and email you with our preference for that. Some of what I had written down has already been said. Most of this regarding the crisis that we're in right now. A reminder to check the website and Facebook for any updates coming from the city. I think the city's been great about letting the citizens know what the response is. That information is always available on the website, on Facebook, and then through the notification system that Director Sappington told you about. As far as the school district offering free lunches, just a little kudos to them. Not only are they offering the lunches now as a response to this virus, but they had not originally planned on offering any lunches through spring break, but they added that because of this. So these kids are getting a meal during spring break when, had everything been the way it was, they wouldn't have. So that's kudos to the school district. Now I think is a really good time to be patient with and show grace to our fellow citizens, city employees, government leaders. This is just uncharted territory that we're going through. We might not agree with all the decisions made. Some think there are people underreacting, some overreacting. Just show grace and kindness and compassion toward those that you're around. On my way here, I got a text from a neighbor who had texted several of our neighbors saying, hey, let's just keep this going. Let us know, let each other know if you need anything. If you're going to the store, if you can pick up something, whatever. So I thought that was a great idea to just be a way to watch out for your neighbors. So I would encourage everybody else to take care of your neighbors, take care of your circle. Most of us do have circles, but if you know someone, and a circle might be your friends and family, but if you know someone who doesn't have that circle of family and friends or doesn't have close by neighbors, then step up and help them yourselves or find someone that can help them. I mean, this is just a time when we all have to reach out to each other and do what we can. And then this has been mentioned too about keeping our local businesses operating as much as possible. Couple of suggestions I've heard, obviously takeout from restaurants. And one other thing that I heard was maybe calling some of these places if you don't feel comfortable going in, but purchase gift cards that can be used as a later time. So that helps them get the business now that you can use later. So just a couple ideas there.
Brad, before you, Philip has a question he needs to ask them of Carol.
Director Smiley, you mentioned the testing site was at the Siloam Springs Community Center?
No, Community Clinic is
Okay,
the one on Mount Olive.
Okay, which I wanted
And I
to
think
make
that's
sure.
kind of interesting. There's one, they're doing one in Rogers, one in Prairie Grove. There's two in Rogers. Rogers has a community clinic, and they're also doing one at the Elmdale Elementary School.
These aren't drive-throughs.
Pardon?
These are not drive-throughs.
You know, they didn't say they were drive-throughs. I think they're inside, but I'm not sure.
All right, Brad.
Oh, well,
Excuse me, wait, we still got some questions.
I'm
being
not going to
asked.
go on now.
Hang on a second, Brad.
Sorry.
Whoa, yeah, keep going.
No, Marta was asking, where is that on Mount Olive? The community.
It's in that big professional building, right kind of catty corner from the library.
Okay.
They're upstairs.
From the library?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I was thinking physicians out on Holly Street.
No, this is
what I was
community
thinking. I know what you're
clinic.
talking about, yeah.
Set up in their parking lot.
They
I
got
believe
tents
it's
set
the
up,
one that
okay.
Raquel
Somebody
Beck
said.
is in charge of.
Okay. I understand there's tents set up out there, so. Brad, it is all yours, sir.
Thank you. I will tell you the governor's given several great talks. Communication's flowing well, and these off-site clinics are the way to go. So that's what that movement is. For Philip, quick question. East Main Side Path, east of Lincoln, why is it dead? Don't answer me now. Shoot me an email. No, not that big of a deal. I know we got some curb issues going to the co-op, so it kind of went dead in the water. And then we finished the one in front of Casey's and wham bam. Thank you,
I
ma'am.
can tell you very quickly, we've been waiting on the Arkansas Highway Department to approve a change, and we just got that change in, I believe today we got that approval.
Oh, I thought it'd be 8 months from now. All right.
It's been 8 months to get the approval, but yes.
Board meetings. I think it's important that we have them, and I think it's time for board members to show reason and calm during these times to keep the city moving forward. Some sense of normalcy when chaos erupts is important. That's where I'm at. I'm not a fan of what we've got going on with the coffee shops, and I've buttoned my lips on it. I'm glad it's working for some of the new board members that you have a way to reach out and touch. I think it causes a little bit of chaos and drama. It played out in your little meeting. I like to do it the old-fashioned way. I just meet people. People know me. They send me emails. I send them to the city administrator. They're addressing a street issue. They're addressing a curb and gutter that took 2 years to get done because it was a pretty big project. It seems to work for Ward 2. I only represent Ward 2. I love everybody in Siloam. Retired fireman, how can I not love Siloam, right? But right now, my concern is Ward 2. That's what I represent, and I'm going to stick with that one, so that'll make more room at the table, and you won't have to hear me talking to coffee, because when I get on caffeine, it's ugly. It's real ugly. And then I'm going to continue to defend East Main. So the Siloam Springs Downtown and Connectivity Master Plan adopted in 2014 by the board at that time. This is off of Kelsey's information that we're losing. If we notice that Main Street is a stepping stone, we're getting some of the cream of the crop, and then they're picked up in the corridor. And these are some of the very people we partner with on many projects in Siloam. The Walton Family Foundation's one of them. Get over it. It's the way it is. And we're fortunate in Northwest Arkansas to be a part of such great growth and potential for quality of life. We're losing the vision. Our biggest issue now is people aren't in school and they're outside in the parks. That's where they should have been the whole time. It's sad that we have to have a crisis to figure out what's most important in our life. And that's what's occurring right now. But in the past 8 years, we've had 20 buildings renovated, 20 plus businesses added, 100 new jobs, 11 million reinvested in property purchases, building renovation, public improvement. And then I'm going to wrap it up there tonight, but I got a ton more. So we're going to unload every meeting. This will be fun. It's like Lucas and I debating on medical cannabis. Some of the greatest pleasures of my life on the zoning map. So I will appreciate it. But we need to keep that in mind, because why we approved it is because it fell underneath economic development, thus the number 11 million. So let's keep that in mind. And then I'll make it real simple tonight about American resilience. And just remind us, from deep recession, terrorism, to pandemic illness, a remarkable confluence of challenges calls America to summon its inner strength. This is not the first time our nation has faced a heavy burden. Historically, we have risen to the occasion of adversity and bounced back. I would request that Siloam stay strong, the board continue to meet, do city business. I think the social distancing out here is fantastic. I believe we got sanitized in here, and if we get too scared, I would take a bottle of that spray I see up there for others. If not, Director Hunt will pass around her sanitizer, hand sanitizer that she's hoarding over here in the corner. And that is all I have, and I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, Red. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. Before I call for a vote, I'm going to kind of echo what Director Burns said there about America. And let's remember, this United States has been blessed by God. And God, the beliefs and the foundations and the things that our our country was founded on were godly based. And let's not forget that God will watch. Nothing has happened that God didn't already know was going to happen. Keep in mind that. I know we may get in trouble for speaking in public about this, but man has nothing. We have something to do with it, but God's not going to allow it to happen if it wasn't already in His plan, and it's there. It's just like the climate control. It's scriptural that man cannot destroy this earth. That will be up to God when it's time for this earth to implode or whatever, however His plan is to get rid of it. So anyway, we are blessed to live in the United States of America. We're blessed to live in the state of Arkansas, and we are even more blessed to live in Siloam Springs, Arkansas.
Amen.
Did I even ask for a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's in favor of the adjournment, not in favor of what I just said. Although I will take that too. We have a majority rule. The adjournment is approved. Therefore, we are adjourned. Woo pig.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say it with me that if you do have any questions about COVID-19, the Arkansas Department of Health has a direct hotline number, and I have it posted at our clinic, but I forgot to bring it with me.
Okay. Everybody hear that? Okay.